Our plan today is to kind of review some of the system analysis entity relationship diagram concept, as well as explain the first, second, third normal form. Although, well, I don't take as formal and a detailed approach as the book does, but it doesn't hurt to understand it clearly. And then get our entity relationship diagram completed for our TIMS project. And from what I remember from our tables is, Hannah, you were going to do the, did you say schedules?
Yeah, schedules.
And what was the other one?
Assignment.
Yeah, schedule assignment table. And then we have courses, users, and there may be like transcripts or reports. But that may be something that, or we're going to have to keep, that transcript may be able to pull that out of assignments and courses. They're going to have to be grades though, so grades will be assigned at some point. And we'll have to decide, is that a table or is the information already needed for grades in the assignments or users? I have a feeling it's going to be a separate table, kind of like a transactions table, where a user can have multiple assignments, assignments have multiple users or students working on them, so grades would be like a intermediate table, and as assignments are given grades to users, that would be a separate table. So a good example of solving the problem of M to N relationships. But first, let's go to our book and look at this whole idea of first, second, and third normal form for tables. And I have the book pages right over here. And let's start with their example of students and courses. They spend a lot of time one by one going through this whole idea of repeating groups. And so we'll look at how the book thinks about or tries to explain first, second, third normal form. For me, I just like to approach designing databases as, let's aim for third normal form as much as it makes sense, and break data into tables when you see that you can treat them as separate objects. So the first thing I would look at this is, well, if I have student numbers and names and their number of credits, information about a student, to me that right away shouts to me, hey, this should be a separate table. And when I see an advisor number with a name, again, that should give a flashing light, hey, that should be a separate table of advisors. Or it doesn't necessarily need to be an advisor table. It could be a user whose role, one of possible roles, is to be an advisor. And the only reason I got that idea is digging through databases of systems I've worked on, like our Moodle system, and I see that they don't have a separate teacher table. I find out in the user table there is a field called roles, and actually a teacher can be a student in one class and the teacher of another class. So the advisor number would just be the user number. So digging through other systems, you start to understand probably good ways to do things. And that's one way, one reason it's good to be able to read and just make practice of reading other people's code or dig through systems that are working. You'll probably get some good ideas. And then you can start there to actually improve upon that. So right away, I might say, well, have a separate advisor table, or this is simply another user number. But let's suppose we're going to have an advisor table because I see an advisor number there. And I come further down in the records and I see, wait a minute, course number. Why should that be part of a big student table? That should be a separate table of courses available. And then they have their courses listed, or the number of credits listed. And as we talked about of our TIM system, we also talked about, well, where's the course going to be located? In a room. And when's it going to be scheduled? And as you get into more and more details, and as you look at systems that do this same kind of thing, they basically break down everything that could be a multiple choice for one record, like where is the room scheduled, or where is the room to be located. They will have that be another table, a table of valid locations. And in there will be like student capacity. Even scheduling, you don't put the time in the course table, because next semester it may be at a different time. And as you think, and like we have at Emmaus, we have a Monday, Wednesday, Friday schedule and different time slots. And if you look through systems that deal with scheduling, they put possible times in a separate table. So this is a table with multiple repeating things. They call them repeating groups. And that's the part that doesn't make a whole lot of sense as we look at now the next second normal form. They say they've removed some repeating groups. Let's go down further. Or did I miss that? Let me zoom out a little bit here. Where did they go? Oh, here. They say they've removed some repeating groups by making the primary key a combination of advisor, or what was it, course number and student number. And really, to me, it looks like they've just extended their repetition all the way across, because I see now Linda's repeating instead of listed one. So their removing of repeating groups doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. As I look through it, I just realized, you know what, break down the tables into separate tables, as they finally show here in the third normal form.
I think what I can tell, the one on the left is supposed to be second normal in that page. Like if you scroll down a little bit, they'll say.
Oh, they're in two on this side.
Yeah, that's.
Then on the right side is third normal form. Yeah.
So third normal doesn't seem too far. They just like pick up the very top table.
Yep. So here is not quite third normal form, because advisor name doesn't depend on the student number primary key. It's only dependent on the advisor number. So the key thing to remember about third normal form is everything, and they have a little saying somewhere there that everything in third normal form, everything depends on the primary key and only the primary key. And I thought I had that highlighted here. Third normal form, where did they explain that? Oh, they go through the example first. There we go. Third normal form, everything depends on the primary key. Non-key fields depend on the key, the whole key, and nothing but the key. So I would jump right away and basically jump to the third normal form example, just to point out, whenever you have information that may need more than a number, such as the advisor number, and with an advisor goes a name, office, location, degree, make that a separate table. When I have courses, intro to business, number of credits, as we discussed our TIM system, there's also location and time. I would make location and time also be separate tables. Another advantage of making things separate tables, think of it this way: if I ever want to add something to my courses, there's only one table I need to change. I add another record to my course table. If I'm using roles for users, I don't have to come back and redesign a table and add fields to the student or users table if I already am referring to possible roles that user can be assigned. So third normal form, basically you break everything up into little tables whenever there's information specific that you can identify. The hard thing about this is there is not one single answer to a problem, that here's the exact tables you need for this specific problems. Some designers may determine their entities, these that would determine tables, in a different way. So then you have to look at, okay, in one particular solution, you have these tables, like the user or like the student or advisor table. That's a valid solution. Another solution, you'll come to someone using a users table with roles of student or advisor assigned to them. I think that's a better answer, but in terms of databases, they both will work. So an example they give, I figured it'd be worth looking at their little example right here for cyber toys. Let's think about this now. Give us a little chance to think. Someone's suggesting this table for cyber toys. And she's suggesting it looks like she's suggesting one table, Marcia designed. And she has many fields in this table: store number, location, store telephone, manager name, manager home telephone, and fields for technician name and technician home telephone, and fields for up to 4 sales reps. They have 4 stores, but they may have more. How would you deal with her suggestion for one big table handling multiple fields? Okay, so 4 tables. What of those 4? Let's see, let's bring up our little notepad here. So from this, what do you think? So let's look at the cyber toys. So you think there should be 4 tables? What would you suggest for the 4 tables?
So store.
Okay, store.
And that's where you have the location, telephone.
So it'd be like a store number, that would be the key. There'd be location, phone, all right.
And then one for the manager.
Okay, a manager table, and that would contain, I'll call it a manager ID. And then name, phone. Okay. What other table would you have? So are you going to have a tech table?
Or we can put technician and manager together because they're both like employees.
Possibly, yeah.
Didn't we just have an employee
I like that idea.
table instead?
The fewer tables, I think in general, fewer tables is better. Sometimes it does make it a little more abstract. Like now, to know whether they're in a manager or tech, you might have position. They're a manager or a tech. And that could be referring to a table if you wanted to, where you keep track of different positions. Okay?
Sales rep, I guess.
Yeah. Would you put that in the employee table as well?
Probably.
Okay. So that would go with position, right?
Yeah.
So the position could be a lookup. How about this? Since we're talking about position, let's call it a position ID, like our roles, which would be a number, pos ID. There's always a primary key. Then there would be a title and maybe salary, maybe something about privileges. Okay, so we're not having a separate manager, technician, and sales rep table. We have employee table, an ID, and I'll call this position ID. So that's a key into another table. Another way to look at this and to think it, do I have it right, is how would I be able to list, think of a query that would get me who are all the sales rep for a particular store. Do I have information here? Could I formulate a query that would find my sales rep for store number 1?
You should probably put the store ID. Well,
In
there
there,
needs to be a way to connect the store ID
right?
to the employee, right?
Yeah.
So I guess.
So I
Yeah,
could put
store
store ID in their employee, unless, as far as I know, every employee is just assigned to a particular store. So I could put store ID as a field in every employee's. Now to find out who my 4 sales reps are, I simply would do a query, and this is where our database SQL practice would come out. You'd think, okay, to find all the employees of a store, I would be select. Let's say we're just looking for their ID. So instead of manager ID here, it would be employee ID. Select emp ID from emp table where, oh, and I need to know what store they're from, where store ID equals some number from the store. That would give me all the employees for a store, and to find just specific technicians, and pos ID equals whatever the technician level is. Or instead of pos ID, where pos title so I'd have to get title from emp and pos ID table. So I build up my query to find my employees. I have to get the information from both the employee and position table. Where store ID is at, and title, actually, yeah, I think this would work, equals tech. And I'd have to put an and there. And I'll just make a capital to make it clear that it's a logical and. So if I can build a query, that helps me confirm, oh, I already had that. That helps me confirm that, yeah, it looks like it would work. And then I'll come back and fix my syntax errors in my SQL. But having those 3 tables, it looks like I can get the information I want. Same thing for finding who is the manager of a particular store. I search for the store where a particular, or what the name is of the employee who is assigned to that particular store. So I'm doing a lot of querying of the employee table. to me, that helps me confirm, do I have my design right? Can I generate a query to get an information that Marcia would need? So it looks like we could probably get away with 3 tables. Is there anything missing here? We have phones, fields for all our employees. And the nice thing about our design is it doesn't depend on there only being 4 sales reps. I can assign multiple employees to the same store, multiple reps. So if later on as we grow we need more sales reps, I don't have to come back and redesign, add another column to this field. You find a lot of people when they're doing this kind of thing for the first time, they're jumping into Access. And I give them credit for being brave enough to try something with Access. This is a very common thing to do. And I come and I'm just helping them figure out their database. And I want to tell them about third normal form or how to make it more efficient. But they've gotten far enough, and in most of their needs, they're only going to need 4 sales rep names. So I'll settle with helping them in a second or normal form database, just because it's going to be hard for them to learn more. And as soon as I break it up into another table, a better form, guess who's the one who's going to have to fix it from now on? I'm going to have to fix it. So I've helped people that have horrible table design, and I'll mention to them, you could do this. This could be more efficient if you did it this way. But rather than redoing it for them and then being their only support, they've been brave enough to dive into to Access, and they'll learn. And their database was small enough that it wasn't horribly inefficient. At the point where they need to rename people, and they are asking for help, I might say, before we do this solve this problem caused by non-third normal form, at that point I might fix it for them. And what's funny is you'll come to some some actually commercial products, and you'll look at their design and you'll find databases that are not in third normal form. But someone hacked together a system that worked well enough and did what they needed, and they were able to sell it, but not horrible, but not the greatest efficiency in their design. But they've made commercial products out of it. So jumping down to the example then, the students, advisors, courses, and grades all have unique information, all dependent on only the primary key of each table. Now, entity relationships. This is just a way sort of to kind of confirm your design. It's not as, I'm thinking in the future, it's not going to be as big a deal, even the first, second, third normal form, because we're seeing with big data out there, there's non-relational databases that don't care about these relationships between tables so much. As those become more of a thing, maybe we're not going to have to concentrate on this, although in relational databases, this is important. And maybe in future versions of this book, we'll be talking more about the whole non-relational databases and how to kind of have good design there. But looking over where is our entity relationship? Maybe I skipped it here. Oh, I think it's further down. No, I think it's before this. I forgot. There we go. What we want to concentrate on is this crow's foot nomenclature. It's helpful to know the general graphics for specific relationships. And again, showing relationships helps to confirm that you have the correct tables. And here is a good table to basically memorize. And as you as someone shows you an entity relationship table, or you come across documentation, this won't be completely foreign to you. The sad thing about this is this isn't the only notation. It hasn't become so much of a standard, and I think in a few pages before they show us other types of relationship. I thought I saw a table of other ways other people delineate it. Maybe it was a Wikipedia page I was looking at. Must have been. This is one way. This is called the crow's foot methodology, or crow's foot method. Let's see. I think I have my Wikipedia page. Let's see if that shows it. There was a page showing multiple ways of showing the cardinality. Yes, here's the Wikipedia page showing there's not just one way to show cardinality. The crow's foot is one of many. And this is a decent page. I just did a search for entity relationship diagrams, and Wikipedia had a good explanation. Kind of giving you a little more history, explaining there's not just the Chen notation or the UML notation or this crow's foot, which the book uses. I like the crow's foot because I like the cute little graphics. But let's look at what this all means. One and only one means there must be one relationship between something, such as every person has a birthplace, and only one birthplace. One or many, and they also had some examples. Maybe it was further down. Where was their example of? Yeah, in a particular cardinality. I thought I saw, maybe that was another Wikipedia page. Here's another type of displaying relationships, is every department has one or many employees. Now, could that be zero or many? And that depends on how you're going to define your system. Do you allow departments to be defined before they have an employee? An individual owns one or many automobiles? No, I'd say individuals don't always own an automobile. So 0 to many. Customer, 0 to many orders. I would say, I probably don't put them in my customer table until they've actually made an order. Some websites, though, don't they make you register before you even made your first order? And by the time you've registered, you're likely in their customer table because they want to send you mail to get you to make that first order. Faculty advisor can be an advisor before they even have a student. Another way to look at this is, well, the verb couldn't happen unless there were at least one department. There couldn't be the employee action even happening. The own action doesn't apply to 0. So that's why someone may look and say, well, that's why it's 1 to many, because I'm not going to be even doing this advising unless I at least have a student. Here is the special case of the many-to-many relationship, where one student enrolls in many classes, and one class can have many students. In actual databases, remember when it's third normal form, you have primary keys for every table. You can't have multiple classes. That's like the multiple sales rep for a store. So what we do is, in the actual database, this M to N relationship actually indicates that there is a middle table in there, basically keeping track of the transactions between these two tables, where registration has a student assigned to a record in registration will have a student assigned to a particular class, primary key for both, and maybe information about the registration of when it was entered. What else could go with just the basically when it was entered, maybe who the person was that took registered them, like the advisor or whatever, referred to by their primary key. So the registration is like they give a name to that? Transaction table. Yeah. There we go. Associative entity. That's what I was looking for. The registration table is like the associative entity. Think of it as a separate table keeping track of those transactions. Same with a bank. Customers make multiple deposits. Accounts may have multiple customers making deposits, so you keep track of the transactions. Reservations on a flight. You have a separate associative entity of the reservations that have been made. And when we're ordering products, we have an order line of the items on a particular product, on a particular order. The main thing to remember is whenever you see the M-to-N relationship, that implies in my underlying database, there's a separate associative entity table. And I could break this into an order has one order has many order lines, so the one-to-many, and one product is listed on a multiple order lines in the table. So one-to-many solves this many-to-many. Because, and you'll see that when you start using Access to define your database relationships, it won't let you do a many-to-many. It only knows one-to-many. So it forces your design to follow that. One-to-many is the really underlying the only relationship. Well, let's look at our Access table now and look at then how our relationship diagram would look, and we'll let Access help us. And in the assignment there, I've asked you to use Lucid Chart to display the entity relationship diagram. But we'll let Access basically almost do it for us, and then we can almost copy paste. Well, we can't copy paste. We can copy or use that as our model to develop our entity relationship. And I think Lucid Chart is still available for free. If we can't use Lucid Chart, we can always fall back to Visio. So let's bring up Access, and Hannah, I'll go and bring just upload your latest Access table design. And we can also make that available to Micah and Isaiah.
I was waiting on Micah's user table, so mine doesn't have the user table.
Right. So upload yours. What I'll do is I'll make yours available to Micah, and then he can make his available to you. Let's see, what's a good way to do that? We could put it in the class discussion part.
I already sent my stuff.
Okay, yeah, you can just send it through email to him. And then just submit yours, and then you can always resubmit. And where did that, let me fix that due date problem. There, I'm turning off the due date so it doesn't turn red on you. And you can always, oh, let's make sure that's going to let you resubmit. And let's make sure I'm allowing you to submit multiple files here. Yeah, unlimited attempts for submission. And 2 uploaded files. So it's already set to allow 2 uploaded files. Okay, so let me go. I should see your submission now. There we go. And that won't be called final until we have it done. You can even put a little note there if you want that this is the completed one. I'll download that one and let's take a look at it. And then we'll lay out, and I could even help lay out other tables. We could at least, even if you don't have the table, you could put a dummy table in there just to have the ID there and not worry about the rest of the fields. So let's look at that. And just to verify that you have everything you probably going to need, it always is helpful to put some records in there of, okay, if I have a class, what would it look like? And then as you're entering, what would a teacher enter for an assignment description? You might think, okay, do they need other information as you're entering information? Pretending you're the teacher. Or if you're a student, is there something else you need to know about it? So there's the assignments, there's the courses. Oh, it's even got a URL. Way to go. Okay. And then you have your grades. And this would be like a relationship table. ID course. That would be the final grade, right?
I guess that's what I was.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was.
And in assignments, there may even be an assignment grades.
Like
separate table.
Total?
Like within a course, when you want to see the grades you've gotten on assignments, or yeah, how's a student gonna know what grade he received for an assignment?
So another field.
That could be a whole nother. It could be another table of assignment grades, where this is final course grades. Now sometimes, I don't think in any systems like this, I haven't seen a grades table where you separated a final grade from a assignment grade. I think it's been two tables. And we can always look at something like Moodle. The scary thing about looking at an example system like Moodle, it's such a huge system, and we've seen there's like 100 tables in there. And just to kind of, as you dig through them, it can be very confusing. So we'll keep it simple, and then schedule.
I wasn't sure as much about schedule, so I don't know if you have any ideas for that table, if that looks right for what you need.
Well, let's use it and set up the entity relationship for that. And if we find out we want a different design, we can always redesign. That's another purpose of the entity relationship. It helps you confirm, is this the right design? For me, when I'm trying to write queries to get specific information like a transcript or the student schedule, I'll be trying to figure out what in the world the query could be, and then I'll realize, wait a minute, I don't have the information to get a student schedule. And I'll come back and say, okay, here's what I would need in order to have a query to give me a student's particular schedule. So right now we're missing a.
So would that be a student, like that table, is that supposed to be for student, like a specific student's schedule? Or is that supposed to be all the courses when they are?
Right.
Does that make sense? I wasn't sure.
Yeah, that would make sense. That this schedule, a course has a schedule, and to see to get a list for a student what their schedule would be, from what we have, could I write a query? Okay, for a student, my ID, for a student ID, list the courses that they have been enrolled in. Well, we don't have a table keeping track of our registration, right? So that would be a separate table keeping track of what courses I have registered for.
Well, I think, or do we not? Yeah.
And that's where, just by, first we lay out the table and say, okay, this looks like a good design. Now can I get the information I need? What happens when a student registers for a course? Where does that information go? Well, it looks like I'd have to have a separate registration table to handle who's registered for what as a course, like that associative entity deal. So just going through, like, then that's the use case, right? You say, okay, a student registers for a course. Let's go through that use case that we talked about in the design. Oh, look, what happens here? Where does the information go? Oh, I can't put it in any of these tables. I probably need another table. But let's just do the relationships between these tables, and we can add the other ones just as placeholders, like you want to do a users and teachers separate, or you want to do students and teachers as separate tables, or do we want to do a users tables with roles assigned? That's a design decision we can make. And maybe we can wait till Micah's back to help us decide. But either way would work. So for now, let's just add well, no, let's not worry about adding tables. Let's get the relationships between these tables, and then we'll come back and add. So we go to database tools. Well, first of all, I think it likes all my tables to be closed before I start doing relationships. So close all of your tables. Access likes to have everything closed. Now we'll do relationships. And now we're basically telling Access, double-clicking on each table, we're telling Access what the relationships are between our existing tables. And some of them are pretty obvious, like ID course, ID course. And you simply click and drag. And I believe if you spelled it exactly the same, I don't remember now if you have it the exact spelling, whether it'll automatically.
Because I had courses and one in course.
Yeah. So to be consistent, I would try to name them the same, but just clicking and dragging one to the other, and then always enforcing referential integrity. Generally, although Access doesn't have it checked, I always check that. Not going to worry about deletion yet. That'll come back later. Generally, we let our databases grow boundless and fill up our disks. Let's see if it'll let me create that relationship. I'm getting no unique index found for the reference field of the primary table. Well, what does that mean?
I was able to.
Oh, that's because this isn't the right relationship. I was dragging the wrong one. Here's the primary key. That's what I need to link. I can't link a non-primary key to a non-primary key. So I was trying to create the wrong relationship, and Access wouldn't let me. It only lets you create a relationship between a key and a non-key. So courses ID, anything where I see ID course, I can establish that relationship and enforce referential integrity. And remember, referential integrity means when I'm referring to a course, it has to exist. When I'm referring to a course from here, there better be a course with that ID existing in the courses table. And same with assignments. Assignments have a course that the assignment is being given in. And I drag enforce referential integrity. So just thinking about this, let's just think about this ID course now. Every assignment is specific to a specific course. An assignment will have an ID and will have a course it's being given in. Is there ever a time where I would have an assignment that didn't need or was not part of a course? I don't think so. So that looks like a good relationship. Schedule. I have a course as part of a schedule table. And in the schedule, the course has one ID assigned to it of the course that is being scheduled, and a day and an hour and a semester. Now, will this guarantee that courses aren't scheduled at the same time, or that a student can attempt to take the same course or a different course at the same time? Well, that's not something our tables are going to have to worry about. That would be a query that I would have to run before allowing a student to register is there another course you just are attempting to register that is at the same time? But it looks like a course is now assigned a time in the schedule. Now there probably would be need to somewhere determine where my course is located. There's my ID location.
Yeah, we have to do a
And we'll do a dummy ID location table and a dummy instructor table.
I don't think if we're going with user, that should be ID user.
Right.
I just changed mine
Yeah.
to match that. So,
Yeah, if we're going to go with a user table and roles assigned. Yep.
right, so user table and location table is what we're missing, it looks like.
Yep. ID instructor, that is not yet a table we have, but we have the placeholder here in our courses table. So as we think through now our courses, a course has an ID, starting date, ending date, title for the course, and then one instructor assigned. And that's where Moodle, with the idea of roles, you can have multiple users in a course where you can actually have multiple teachers. And that's where the idea of users with roles comes in a little handy. You simply have a who's assigned to a course, and all that would be in that separate registration table. A description unique to my course, URL unique to my course. Location, a unique location. So that is implying we need also a location table. All right, looks good. From the schedule table, it's simply linked to what course has a particular schedule, day and hour, and semester. So as I assign
Just created like the location table. How do I import that into my relationships?
oh, let's do that. So I close this. I'm happy with these relationships so far, saving them. Now I'm going to add a table. Oh, sorry, I don't want to add a query. What table did you have? Location table, right? So I create table design, and I'll just call it location ID.
Or I have it in the ID location.
Okay, that's fine. I'll follow that. Yeah, be consistent in your naming, however you. And I'll make it auto number. My favorite is auto number for IDs, unless I have a specific reason. And make that the primary key. And if I want to add more information, I can, but I'll just leave it at that for now. I'll call this my dummy table. When I save it, that's where I give it a name, location. So now I have my location table. I'll come back to my database tools relationships, right click in the gray, show table. And then now I can add my location table by just double clicking. And you'll see sometimes when you bring up databases other people have designed, you can actually show a table in multiple places to avoid crazy crossing lines. So ID location goes with my course, so now I can drag location to location, enforcing referential integrity. Now it may give me a problem because auto number means it's a number, and I'll do cancel that. I can't do referential integrity unless, wait a minute, got to read that error message again. Enforcing referential integrity, because I don't have any locations yet, and I'll bet you in my table, if I go to my courses table, saving this first, I'm referring to a location already of 0, which doesn't exist. So it won't let me enforce referential integrity. So let me give a location. And since I don't have any other field, that's a problem. Let's add other field. Let's call it description. And then datasheet view, add a table. I'll call it classroom C. Uh-oh, look at that. Location starts at 1 because I'm auto numbering. In order to allow referential integrity to work, I have to go back to I'll close this, change my location to be the one that exists. Change that to 1 instead of 0. Otherwise, Access will not let me assign referential integrity to that relationship. And I'm going to close that. And while I'm here, I'm just going to correct the name of that table. Assignments. 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 And now back to my database tools, relationships. I can double click on this line now, enforce referential integrity, and because location 1 now does exist, it lets me do that. And did I lose a table? Location, courses, grade, schedule. How did assignments disappear? Oh, because I renamed it. It took it out of the relationships when I renamed it. So now, oh, and look at that. It shows the relationship right there. So this is helping me kind of get an idea of what my entity relationship diagram would be. Replace the infinity symbol with n, 1 to n. Now, could it be 0 to n in any of these? Although Access is showing 1 to n in my grades, I haven't yet entered a grade until the course is complete. So in my real entity relationship, the course to grades could be 0 to n relationship until the course is complete, after the end date. So Access doesn't give us our exact entity relationship diagram, but it helps to lay out an idea of what it would probably look like, and close to the entity relationship. Now, we wanted to do our users tables. Okay, so we close this, saving the changes, and I can go back and add my users table. ID user, auto number, and it'd be last name, first name. And how you name your fields, I'm not going to be fussy. A lot of database people do all caps. Phone, memo, make that a long text. And you could add address, city, state, all that. Now, would you put GPA in your users table?
Well, because you have some instructors, you have potentially administrators that would be important to know about them, right?
Right. And as students are taking courses, you can calculate their GPA based on their grades they've received. It may take a little longer. So I've seen some database people that will actually have a place for GPA if they're a student, just because when they want to get a list, they want it to get it quickly. So when a student's grades are entered, they'll take the time to go through all the calculation, enter the GPA. But I would assume my database is fast enough. If there's any field that can be calculated based on the information in other tables, I don't make it a separate field, because that's say it's redundant information. And how do I know that I've actually calculated the right thing? To verify it, I'm going to go to calculate it anyway. So I would not have a GPA field. I would calculate that when they're listing their transcript. So there's my user field.
And so then in courses, you have to change that to a 1, is that right, for user, for ID user? Like what we had to do with the ID location?
Yeah, for an instructor. Since the instructor ID would be referring to a user.
But now would you change that to ID user, right?
Yes, yeah. Well, no, actually, I think I would leave it ID instructor, just to remind me in the name that that's referring to an instructor. And it's because the names don't have to be the same. It's the type of data has to be the same if it's a number. So I could say, in my description, I refer to ID of user assigned as instructor. And in my database tools relationships, I can right-click Show Table, show my user table, and I can tell it, oops, I added it twice. I can tell it that my instructor is referring to a ID of a user. Oh, did I not save? Oh, I don't have an instructor one yet. I haven't created an instructor. So I'll do create but not enforce. Then I don't get the one-to-many indication. But if I come back to here now and go to my user table, adding one, Manning, and because I'm not making all the other ones required, as long as I have one field entered, now I can go back and in my relationships enforce referential integrity. So here, I'm not even using that idea of roles assigned. I'm just saying an instructor could be any user in the system. Now, at the point where I'm allowing the instructor to be assigned, when I'm doing the administration of the course, at that point, I would have a query about something about that user. Are they allowed to be a teacher? And that would be where I might deal with that roles table. But at the point where I'm just thinking about who's assigned as the teacher, all I care is I know the ID of that person. And now here's in grades the ID of the user that has received a grade. I drag that relationship over, enforcing referential integrity. And since no grades have yet been entered into the grade table, I don't get the error about referential integrity rules being broken. So what this is telling you is to avoid that complaint about referential integrity, before entering data into your tables, establish the relationships. Then as you enter data, it'll say, oops, sorry, I can't enter that data if you're trying to refer to a user that doesn't exist yet. So it's safest to lay out these entity relationships and the database rules before you start entering data. Let's see. So we'll go through each table, check for IDs. So far, with what you have so far, we have all our entities defined. No one's using assignment IDs yet because that would go with some assignments completed tables. So that would be dealing with a separate table. So where we're seeing a primary key not connected to something, that would tell us that we don't have a complete design yet. Every key, every primary key should be referred to by something. I think. I'm thinking, would there ever be a table without a connection to its primary key? Well, maybe not. Maybe if I'm like that transaction table, if I just need to go now see grades, I have the connection based on a user's it's assigned to. So from this now, we can leave that up. I'm gonna close it just to make sure that my changes are saved. And then I can come back to it. I can keep that up as I now see if I can use Lucidchart now to show my entity relationships. And it looks like you have, is that a Visio one you got there?
No, that's
Lucidchart? So it's working out for you?
Yeah, they gave like a template.
Oh, good, good. And it's been a while since I've used Lucidchart. Did it take your Google account, Gmail account to log in?
Yeah,
good.
I like got into my drive. Oh, and now I just logged in.
So if you're logged into your Gmail, you can just say use Gmail to bring me in. I'm bringing up Lucidchart. And, oh, I thought it connected to my Gmail. Let's see, if I sign up, will it use my Gmail? I know I have an account.
If you're in Gmail, you can go to your drive and
Okay.
it's basically like creating a Google Doc.
Right. I think, let's see, I'm going to check the login here, see if it lets me log in. There we go, log in with Google. So if you're logged into your Gmail, and you're a Emmaus Gmail, I think you may be able to use it with a regular account too. It'll see that you're logged in, and you can just click here. Let's see if it takes me in. Yep. And they remind you that the free one, you're missing some capabilities, but for us, I think we're good. And there's the example. You can start with that, or you can start from scratch. It's easy enough to start with that. Pretty user-friendly. And what I can do now is move things around, see how the connections follow me. I like that. And I would have been using Lucidchart more, but I don't think it lets us do the URL, the gain Sarsen notation. It's close. Oh, no, there. Look at that. There is the data flow. So, based on what we have here in Access, assignments, courses, location. And I can list those. It'd be nice if I could just import it from Access, but I don't think it lets me. Yeah, it lets me import from Visio, but it won't just take it from, it sure would be nice if I could just say, send to my Access database, and it would pull up the relationships. Or if Access would let you export it to something. But I have to manually recreate that. So for now, I'm just going to create the tables by their names and put the IDs in there so I can make the connections, and I'll leave the other information out for now. So to create my assignments, I could copy this one, or let's see how, if I were starting from scratch, how would I enter that table? There's my entity. Drag that up. And then in Access, it's going to be assignments. So it looks like a double click, assignments. Double click, ID, assignment. You have your choice of shading your header. I'll let you decide how you like yours to look. As you enter more fields, you can just change that number and then just double click on their names. Automatically expands that. I'll leave mine small for now. Let's see what manage fields does. I guess that's instead of just double clicking on them to change their name. I can add more fields, which is the same as incrementing the number there. Now, if I like that design, I can do, hopefully, a copy paste. Yes, it does. And that would be my locations. Double click, locations. So you're almost duplicating the access relationships.
Or are we not adding fields? I'm sorry.
Yeah, if I want to add fields, I can just.
Are we just adding the ID?
I'm just putting the ID for now, just so I can make the connections. But to add fields,
Well, like some of them have ID user and ID.
how do I add fields now that I double click? Right click.
Fields. Oh, you can increase fields.
Over here.
I just clicked on the box and there was like a little thing that showed up.
Yeah, I X'd it out, and let's see, maybe I turn on view. How do I get that helper back? Huh. I dismissed that dialog, and I don't see how to get it back when I click on a box. It's probably an option somewhere up here. You'd think I right-click. Let's see what this guy does. Maybe it's information. There we go. The little I. If I have it closed, just the little I there. I was thinking that was help. I was refusing to ask for help. There it is. So that's where you could add a field. And then let's see if I just drag one to the other, does it form my relationship? How do I add the relationship? Or is it a separate little arrow? So where do I define my crow's foot? Now I need to add my crow's foot. You'd think it would have been here in entity relationships, but I just see entities. Unless it's on another page of that, no. Is it under more? No images. I would have expected it here. No.
crow's feet or?
I could always copy from here, but I was wanting to. Oh, there it is, up there.
Oh, oh.
There we go. So I can draw a line.
I guess I don't.
There we go. So I draw the line
Okay, I see.
and hook it to the right places. And then I choose what type of crow's feet to use for that. So it would be ID location. Actually, I'm connecting to the wrong place here, aren't I? There we go. So ID location is the one side. So how do I reverse it? Oh, I select which end I'm on. Looks like that. So let's try that. Oh, it has a crow's feet for each end. I didn't notice. So that one, ID assignment, that would be, well, there is no relationship between them. So that's a silly connection. Delete that. It's the, back here under Access, it's the courses that have those. So I'll put courses with those two IDs in there. So now I'll make my courses table here.
Oh, I'm sorry. How did it go from one to many? I can see one.
In the crow's foot, let's see here. First I have to draw my line.
I can go back. So on one side, it has to be little lines, okay? Line on the other side.
So on the left side, it's going to be 0 to many. And on the right side, oh, I have the wrong connection. It's course in my chart, not ID assignments. So I'll move this down one and connect it. So a course is going to have an ID, so this better connect here. Name that my ID course. Just like I have over here in Access, ID course will be referring to what assignment has been given in that course. So back here, ID course, that will be 1.
So
Oh,
is this something you want
wrong.
uploaded by Tuesday? And if so, does it have a place for 2, or should I just?
Yeah, there's a place for 2. Yeah. Oh man, we're done already. Just having too much fun.
I almost finished it. I think it just has 2 or 3 more sections to go, so.
So we got to get on Micah to get his in.
Yeah.